did you two get together?
First thing that actually the Deemies came together for was a comedy night, and we just needed a name. And for the night, it was just supposed to be a one-off night, so we just stuck to this LouDeemy variety night, and hence the can. If you've seen the can, we had musicians, magicians, comedians, poetry, and the 57 variety thing. And I kind of, like Andy Warhol, kind of ripped the can off totally. And that's how it started.
We used drama and creative ways of exploring them and telling stories, because it's really healing. We always have a lot of fun on the projects, completely respecting the seriousness of the issues.
But what we can also do, because we're not bound by institutionalised guidelines, is base those boundaries individually on a person and let that person enough space for them to grow. With Louise's psychiatric background and my experience of mental health issues, we kind of realised that there was a lot of things in the mental health services and what they were getting that could be done slightly better. And we kind of connected with that and had some ideas.
Somebody had asked us if we did, other stuff, other projects, and I think because I'd been doing projects freelance and sort of with other companies for quite a few years, and you'd sort of done stuff through the trust and volunteered, and we thought, well, yeah, obviously we could do a project. And from that then, we've probably at least 50% of the projects we do are because when we're doing a project, somebody will say to us, would you ever consider doing a project about self-harm? Because you probably wouldn't, because nobody will do a project about self-harm. And it's like, well, actually, if you want a project around that, then of course we'll do it. It wasn't a deliberate intention or decision originally to do a lot of stuff particularly around mental health or challenging topics, but we ended up doing a project around adult bullying, self-harm, domestic violence, suicide, eating disorders, and like all these quite challenging, and if you kind of read the list on our website, it does all look a bit maudlin. And I think it kind of dawned on us that, well, if that's kind of how we're identified as an organisation, of a sort of like a company that will tackle projects and issues that other people don't want to, either because they're a bit scary and challenging, or because they're perceived as unglamorous. Because I would say, I personally haven't experienced very serious and traumatic adult bullying. I would say there's a lot of interest in bullying in schools and child and adolescent, which there should be. But the adult bullying is either not always recognised, or it's a bit boring. It's not a glamorous thing for people, I think, who've never had any sort of experience. And the thing with theatre and drama and creative ways is that you can actually engage people even if they're not interested in the subject matter.
It was an organic approach at the beginning. There was nothing, we didn't set out to become LouDeemy Productions. We were just doing things that, for me, it was like what was helping me. You, because that's what you did, your job. I mean, at that time, I still didn't think of it as a job. It was, I volunteered to just keep sane, or just okay, keep busy. And then it became what I do now, virtually every day, 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Never ends, it's endless.
How long ago was this?
2010.
So it's quite a long time ago then.
July 2010.
So in a way, there are different threads, and it gradually developed into something different, and you didn't mind challenges either.
No. It was the response we got from the people we're working with, and it's got to be about the people we're working with, and it's what they, and we try to keep an open mind and not push our thoughts and ideas, even when sometimes it feels like I want to scream at you, this is wrong.
Because we do get people come along sometimes who do express opinions which you think that's not particularly accepting.
We had people who've come in and just sat at the beginning on the periphery of the group, or popped their head in and then gone. By the end of it, they have been engaged. It may not be from the outside point of view, look like they're engaged, but they are.
But we have people that start off at that point, and then and they're like, I'll do the sessions, but I'm not going to perform at the end, or and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Nobody has to do that. And then by the end of the project, quite often we can't get them off the stage, which is great. And that can happen which is why I love drama and creative writing and all the creative tools so much, because I don't know anything else that can work so quickly in confidence building, because that can happen in 10 sessions, and they do all the work themselves. It's just we kind of give them a few tools, and we'll go from that whole such a struggle to even come and stay in the session or to sort of say their name, to sharing a poem, doing a comedy sketch, talking about their experiences.
Well, that's another important aspect to what we do. Sometimes the subject matter of the project is by the by. There's a gap in the system where they still need that support, but there isn't. And some of our projects gives that to some people. There's a social element. That's the word I was looking for. Tea and biscuits is very important.
Tea and biscuits is really important. And I think people... we kind of joke about it, but people really underestimate the fact that if you turn up somewhere and one of the first things that happens is that the people introduce themselves and say, here's the kettle and tea, and there's tea and coffee and biscuits, because it automatically shows some kind of caring and value. We always make sure at the end of any session we do, but when if we bring in other workers and we're dealing with particularly sensitive sessions, we always leave enough time at the end of a session to make sure everybody feels safe. Ending rituals, we generally have a bit of food and a sort of a little bit of a social gathering. People can get attached very quickly to a project and to the people within that project, so it's really important to not just kind of like have a final session and no kind of marking that people have sort of done that project and achieved things.
We go into schools, universities, using our drama techniques to teach social work students, and we're got a contract with BCU now, working with our mental health nurses. But
that was because we'd gone and done a performance of a totally unrelated project, which was the 300 Voices project, which is a Time to Change programme, looking at the experience that young Afro-Caribbean men have through the mental health and criminal justice service, and the students were saying, really, can we have more of this instead of overhead projectors? Because kind of who wouldn't want I don't know, I know I'm biased, but really if you've got the option of like overhead projectors and taking notes or watching a play, I guess a lot of people would probably prefer to watch a play.
Mental health stigma, if you get them young and have that part of their education, that would go a long way for the future.
I think it's brilliant to have a 15-year-old or a 19, 20-year-old come along to a group with whatever they may or may not have perceptions of what mental health is, and then to sit in a room and kind of think, people are just people, and I think young people very often kind of will soak that in very much more quickly sometimes.
Well, the thing is, as far as they're concerned, they're having a play, but they're learning from that. And when I say play, I don't mean theatre play. They get involved, and like at the university, they play. We play games. We get them in 10 minutes to devise a 2-3 minute piece which they perform to each other. And they're always apprehensive when they get there, and then afterwards it's like they don't know what to expect. It's nothing like their normal education.
And we use that as all part of the learning experience, because it's such a brilliant hands-on way of saying there may be points in today where you feel out of your comfort zone. That's good, work with it. So the whole experience is really good, because we can actually work with sort of that people sort of thinking, why are they asking me to do this? Because we do, people always join in, but we will sometimes initially get a little bit of kind of, I'll come to the session, but I'm not going to do anything, and we have to work with that. And again, though, I think it's useful perhaps if in the future when they're working with people and maybe somebody that they might label as difficult or challenging, and not take it personally and realise that actually what's going on in that person's head is probably complete panic and not knowing how to sort of deal with the situation.
And they get this experience before they get jaded by the world out there, which is the good thing. I get as much out of it as the participants, and sometimes I don't equate myself any separate from them when we're in that group.
Again, that's always been a thing of mine about the whole them and us, and it's like, we always make it clear that whatever people's experiences before or separate from our group, we are all working on this project together, and there's no kind of status thing. We've all got experiences, we've all got value, we've all got worth, and we've all got strengths.
We give them opportunities to use their strengths to run part of the workshops as well, if they can do 5 minutes here and there. The holistic approach is something that we look at, and it's an individual approach as well. To a certain degree, there are times when you have to look at it as a group, but we do try to do as individually as we can. But at the end of the day, there's only 2 of us, and so we can get stretched a little bit.
You find you need to have some time out for yourselves too. I know, Louise, you're smiling.
I don't.
I'm not a workaholic as Louise is, and that's separate from that. I just like some time now and then. So far, let's put it that way, I haven't needed to take time out because of work, the issues that we're discussing so far.
A lot of joy in our projects and a lot of laughter and humour.
Yeah.
But I still, at the end of projects, see, I'm going to do it now.
Oh.
I'm so emotional. I get all like that. But it's so good to have that thing when you're sitting watching people do a performance and you're sitting there going, and I don't ever want to lose that.
It's that instant response from people, and it made me, I'm sure I'd say, it makes what you're doing worthwhile, and that feeling generates more, and it's like, that's what keeps me going, because I'm doing something that's, I feel, is important to somebody, for their well-being, and that keeps my well-being. I don't see it as a job, it's a vocation. It's a vacation sometimes as well.
You worked with me for 5 years thinking it was a vacation.
From sanity.
Now reality kicks in.
It's a vacation from sanity.
I told him it was a vacation.
Got a contract with BCU now, working with their mental health nurses on nursing, but on their mental health module.
Mental health nurses.
No, they're just not the nurses. It's the mental health module.
The mental health nurses. See, we never are.
Rubbish, sorry.
We're not showing rubbish. I'd like to point that out. It's not rubbish.
I need a break. So intense.
Cut.